To the end, he's still merciful. I was taught this story so many times over the years about who was the good one and who was the bad one. Right?
The way you put it in the beginning of the story, how do you lean more towards the bad guy, the good guy? I like the way.
God's the good guy for sure.
Right. I like God. We ought to be tempted to go towards what we want to.
What nature did Abraham have? Same one I have. The only thing that was of interest was that Paul says that he believed and it was counted to him as though he was righteous. Not that he was good, just that he believed. Why would we close off the road to the city of refuge for anybody? Say that road's only for people like this. I'm not saying we do that. I'm just saying that when we look at historically viewing much of the religious environment, and I use that way outside of Christianity all the way around. Good intentions, I think. Not talking about inherently evil people. You guys are kids of the promise. Verse 29. But you are now being persecuted by those who want to keep the law, just as Ishmael, the child born of human effort, persecuted Isaac, the child born by the power of the Spirit. But what do the scriptures say about that? He's just saying that live in freedom. It's not about where you came from. It's about the fact that the Son can set everybody free. The Son has set everybody free. Live free. I want to give you one more challenge. Well, there's got to be more coming, but today. I want you to think about who you say you are. And then I want you to think about who you think other people think you are. And then I want you to throw both of those away. Because both of them are untrue. Even if somebody said, well, you are greatly esteemed and you're a skillful orator and you have a silver tongue that speaks so eloquently. Well, we already know that you don't have a pastor like that. But anyway, just go out on a limb and let's pretend. Even if you said that, even if the thing that you're saying about me seems like a really good thing, like you're building me up and all of that, that's still, from a human perspective, generally when we're that. I'm not saying we shouldn't encourage each other, but if you say I'm great, that doesn't mean that's true. If you say that I'm the slime, the scum of the earth, that's probably not true either. The spectrum of it, the scale that we try to put things into, we're always worried about scales and degrees of how much. Like scales of how much Holy Spirit you have. How much Holy Spirit do you need to function? The amount God gave you.
Very profound.
Yeah. I'll be as full as I get rid of me. full as I lose me. And my identity is defined by my Father and my relationship to Him. So my identity isn't Pastor Dale, my identity is Son of God.
That makes sense.
Can you imagine when we actually take hold of that? When you allow Him to identify you, you're no longer subject to going out to be offended. There's nothing that you need to go be mad about because somebody said something or didn't say something or whatever. When we can have our true identity, guys, then we have all things in common. When you look around this room and you say, everybody here is sharing the same Father. The same source of life. There wasn't a different God that came and gave life to Ishmael. That was not some other source. There was God's way and there was man's way. That's the issue here. That's the story. It's just about how things came into being. But how could God not love the thing that He gave life to? Then how could we not love the thing that God gave life to? How can parts of His body not be about the Father's business? Right? If it's His business, it's my business. If it's not His business, it's none of my business. It's real simple, doesn't it? I want you to think about those two challenges today. And if you're still not really sure what God thinks of you or what your identity is, spend some time and ask Him. Because I guarantee you there's not a single person in here that God hates.
Thank you, Pastor.
And when you go out from here, every person you meet today, there's not a single one you will meet today that God hates. There's not a single one that is scorned of God. Right. That's right, brother. Yeah, they're scorned of themselves. Yeah. Come on up, brother.
I'm not exactly the outward type person, I'm more an inward person, but what I've learned with people, each day I've learned that I learned that there's people out there that want to be more, I would say, like the plant, but they don't want to be planted. That's how they're, if you understand the whatever the thing is. Concept, yeah. I know this lady I play games with or whatever, and I can tell the way she treats herself is like, wow. But like I said, I don't hate her or anything. I know God doesn't hate her or anything. It just kind of has that whole evil spirit type thing all over her. It's like a mess, but I talk to her all the time, and it's hard because she doesn't want to talk to me. Like, who in the world would want to not talk to me? Like, I just head down.
That is good. Frank is good.
All I can do is try, you know, and yeah. And then there's other concepts that I wanted to share, but while you were talking, there was the evil spirit and the Holy Spirit, you know, battle. And how I perceive my identity depends on you know, God's identity of me. How I think of myself, how He thinks of myself is like that.
Yeah. I understand that too. Mine's like that too.
For me, it's more like looking left and looking right at the same time. You can't do that. Only God can do such things. So, yeah.
Trying to say that with God in your heart, you're equal with God. So He's looking one way while you're looking the other. Amen. Amen.
But, when I went into more, say, higher thinking of myself, depending on, you know, whatever thing I'm doing, I've learned that I'm growing a lot more, and I'm sure my parents think I'm growing a lot more than I used to. I used to be like that. Even though I went to church or did that, I was just sort of like that in a way. Didn't show it. But to my parents, I was always like that. More designed with words of whatever I wanted to do. But I am growing a little more each day now. And you wouldn't even imagine that how I've been thinking of this is from a game. My parents were like, okay. But it actually called this actual Life is Strange thing. It's been growing me in some ways because it's not just a game to me. It's more of what life is actually like. Maybe in a different perspective, but it is truly, the writer in this story is actually really good. I liked it.
Thank you, Josh. It's awesome.
So, Brian, can I come up and join your royal brother? I just can't help it, man. I'm just so happy you're here today. And do you remember the first day we met? And do you remember I was telling you your royalty?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I am not royalty.
You are royalty, brother. You are royalty. You were then, and you are now. Yeah.
You resistor.
You guys are sons and daughters of the promise. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you got?
3 or 4 minute testimony.
Sure. That's what we do here.
You know, in the beginning of the sermon, he was talking about God's feelings, and, you know, he feels so much for us, so much love for us, right? Well, this is my testimony about when I was a real young believer. I was on the beginning of this quest, this walk to search for God and find out who he is. It's before the baptism of the Holy Spirit even. And I found myself in a church one morning, and it was during worship service, and as being a young musician with a lot of zeal and desire to express my talent, I love worship, but I was hurting so bad. Tears were coming down my face uncontrollably, and I was in so much pain, and I had a headache, nothing worked right. I felt worse than I do now as an old man, waking up in the morning and it's cold. So anyway, I was called up by the worship leader. She noticed what was going on with me. You can see it on my countenance. The church prayed for me. I sat down out of respect for the ministry. Waited till the end of the service. As soon as it was over, I ran out in the field next to the church and started yelling at God. And I don't even remember if it was using street language. But I told him, I don't know what's going on. I don't like it. And he said, well, son, he said, I'm just sharing with you my feelings. He said, there are very few people that are willing to feel this part of me and begin to and continue to worship and serve me. He said, what you feel is the fact that my spirit is grieved and my soul is vexed because my body is broken. And that's what you feel. And that's how he feels because of how much he loves us, how bad it hurts him to see the brokenness and the division within him. And because this is the only way he feels anything is through us, our emotions, our desires, and what we do for others.
Thank you, Keith. Awesome. But by the way,
That was a good point.
if you're new here, I hope you understand this is how it works. Pastor doesn't necessarily mean preacher. So we're here to edify by his Spirit the fullness of the body, of which you guys are all very much important parts of. So, all right. Children of the promise, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen. Right.